Hello there, folks. I know this is quite different, and of course you have seen this before. But yes, this is me, Ichigo Musuko, and I'm showing you the inside or the outside of my work, my actual career as a author. You know, there are times in which I could never understand why certain things just happen. I mean, one day you find yourself doing something you love and then it turns into a career. Then all of a sudden, you don't know what to do next. This is something I often just don't do, and really it's one of those times I usually just start thinking about stuff that I usually do. This is one of my fan fictions I'm actually working on, namely called Kamen Rider 21. The entire title of this fan fiction is called Legend of the Four Forgotten Riders. This is the second story of the Kamen Rider series. Of course, what I'm doing is actually making riders of my own. And namely, in order, they're called Onimusha 21, C, or Rider EXE, and of course Harrier. These are the four forgotten riders that I feel they would fall in between, say, one of the already canon riders of the Showa or Heisei eras. At times like these, I don't really do much writing, but when I do, I usually just sit there for an hour. This is what I usually do. I usually sit at my usual spot in McDonald's and I write books. And all I'm doing is just sitting there, just writing up a story. Sometimes, I really just tend to just do some stuff and then all of a sudden, that sort of thing. So, a lot of things that I usually do, I don't really just, I really try to do, but time is a thing to me sometimes. Very much it's a thing. As you can see, I have actually worked on this thing since, I think I started on this thing since 2011. Yeah, I actually started this thing since 2011. Possibly longer than that because, well, as you can see, I've been on and off certain stories, and being an author, it's not really easy. It's kind of like, you make up a story, but then you put it down to paper, but then comes the hard part, in which you have to edit. And editing a story on the fly is just as hard as trying to edit a video. The thing with me is, I edit on the fly. So whatever I put down, this is the end result. So basically what I'm doing right now is I'm skimming through the actual book. And the actual book is about, right now, on paper it's 63 pages. On paper alone it's 63 pages. But what you're seeing, though, this is about 193 pages. So, yes, it's basically about a doctor by the name of Kuro Shimada, and he is somehow turned into a writer out of a twist of fate. And as reluctant as he is, he joins the original writers from Kamen Rider 1 to the movie writers. And mainly it's I'm basically saying, okay, consider this is the lost story of what happened to the original Generation 1 writers. So this is what I'm actually showing you that I have been working on since maybe 2000. I'm pretty sure it was either 2011, because it's been long. It's been a long time since I've actually done this, you know. And I have been doing this before I started on this project with the house. And for a long time I've been doing this. And as you can see, yes, I'm actually skimming through all this because, well, this is my career after all. The stories I can share that I was that I decided to do, you know, this as a living. To some people, I still can't get over it, you know. This is what I do sometimes. I usually go over my old works, and I'm doing this very, very slowly so you can read what I've been doing. And usually what happens is whenever I do something of this stature, it means I'm going to be working like this for quite a while. Now, usually when I make, whenever I make a book like this, it would take about up to at least 2 years tops, maybe 3, just because I'm writing all this down. And usually when I put it down to paper, it would take me about maybe an hour, 2 hours, and I lose track of time that way. But still, I do this, and I'm just like, wow, I actually made this. It's pretty awesome. and you know, sometimes I read my own work. Sometimes I like sharing it. But you know, it's not like it's not really bad. But sometimes, you know, I'm like that. I just get lost into my work, and when I do, it's like I can never pull myself out of it. Sometimes it's easy, other times it's not. But as you can see, from what you're probably looking at, by just a teeny bit, I usually just read very slowly. Sometimes, like I say, I share. Other times, I don't share. It's like a very long time. I mean, sometimes I share with the RCO. Sometimes I'm just like really quiet. Most times when I'm quiet, sometimes this is what I be doing. I actually type up a long story. Or actually I type up what I've been adding in the story and still working on it. Now, as I'm showing you this, actually this story is nearly at the end. because I looked at my work, and it's to the side of me, and technically, I'm nearly done with this work. And as you see, yes, it is 193 193 pages. By the time I actually finish it, it should be around maybe 200, over the 200 mark. I don't know how far, but I know it's going to be at least over 200 pages. And usually, whenever I'm like this, when I'm online at a certain hour, whenever I don't talk, this is, like I mentioned before, this is what I do. Even after hours, I usually think of, just typing up my work. But like I said, sometimes I'm just tired. And sometimes when you do something like this, it's like it takes maybe for me it would take at least 2, 3, maybe longer, depending on how long how long the story actually is. But I've done plenty of fan fiction before. Like I did a crossover with Tenchi Muyo and Dragon Ball called Dragon Ball Tenchi. There's another one I did, and I still remember it to this day. It was one about a cross between Dragon Spirit and The Legend of Zelda. And it was a good story because I based it off the NES sequel to Dragon Spirit, The New Legend. And I forgot which Zelda it was. Maybe it was a little after the Adventure Link. I don't know. But I know for a fact that I did do a lot of stories. Sad thing is, most of my stories are long gone. Except for the ones I'm doing now, like The Legacy of the Seven Stars, Volume 2, Kamen Rider Onimusha, Kamen Rider 21, Dragoon Clan Neo, which is the sequel to that, which is the second book in the Seven Star Saga. As many other books I've been working on. But most times I'm just, I'm just doing this because, I like to do this sometimes. And like I said, it's actually my job I'm showing you. Because really, when you actually do something as long as this, well, I am a real quiet guy. Sometimes when I don't feel like talking, this is what I turn to. Usually around 5. I usually sound like I'm just gonna go just like that. Like I'm about to pass out, but usually I'm just sitting here thinking what to do the next day, what I have to do, what I'm going to do, and such. I try to make most of my day worth something. So, like I said, this is one of these kind of this is my job. And usually this is what I actually do. I usually just pull out a random piece of work, work on it, and boom. I know this might be the most boring video you've ever seen, but, you know, this is my job. Really, this is my job that I'm showing you right now. When I'm not LPing, this is what I do. Quietly, it just happens, you know. Especially when you sit around and you just let your ideas flow, like, you know, like you're cooking something. Usually that's what I imagine myself doing. I imagine myself doing this, sitting in front of a TV, in a chair. I'm watching my very project, you know, I'm watching my very project just go, you know, make itself into its own story, and then after that, after it gets to a certain point, then I have to basically take it from there and just say, okay, well, what should I do with this? And, you know, how should I do that? And, you know, I always consider, oh, I should do this, and I should make it more like that. And, you know, how to make my story better, how should it sound more better, and everything of the like. It's funny. I have done this. I have been an author since I was I should say around 18 or 19 years old. No, I take it back. It wasn't 18 or 19 years old. It's been longer than that. I've been like an author since 12, I believe, because I used to make these mock stories of certain games. Like, I remember I used to write this I used to write an in-game story about Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Because since there was no storyline, no written up storyline, I'd say, hey, why don't I make up a storyline? And I went through every stage and, you know, just imagine me playing the game and just writing the story down in the back of my head while I'm doing this. And I actually finished the entire story. But the sad thing is, I never did type it up. I never typed this thing up. I had my cousin to type it up for me. And this is when I didn't have a computer yet. But usually when I'm doing something like this, I'm like, hey, I'm doing this, yay. I also did that with something else. I forgot what it was. It's something like Lunar. Yes, Lunar the Silver Star. I actually did write up, you know, something like that, but the thing is, I never did put that down to I never did put it down to computer. And I wrote it up like a playwright. That's why I remember I did write the story up like a playwright. And I was up to where they would meet at Nanza, where the entire group would meet at Nanza. And a lot of other things I've done before that. Mainly when I was younger, I used to do a lot of brainstorming. Namely, I made game ideas, but I never did follow through with them. I just like, oh well, what if this were to happen when you do this? And I remember I was like 14 or 15 when I actually did that. And what I did was I sat in my father's back house and just basically just sat there writing down my ideas. And usually the ideas were namely like like brainstorming game ideas. Even go so far as to also do something like create game the characters and in the series. Like if it was a fighting game, I create the character and the moves, and I would kind of imagine it because like I said, I just didn't consider myself doing, oh, well, let me make an idea, such and such and such and such and such and such. I went deeper than that, folks. I went really, 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 really deep. And I used to write letters to certain companies. Like I said, I did a lot when I was younger. I can still write a good letter. As you can see, this is what I'm still doing. And I used to write letters to Working Designs, Konami, Capcom, and the like. And for the most part, I asked them questions. Even Nintendo, I asked questions like, why don't you do this? And can you, by any chance, make this happen? And could you do such and such? And I used to get replies back from mainly Working Designs because I used to be a fan of their work. I used to own all the games, in which I kind of do. Like I have like Lunar, the Silver Star, Lunar Eternal Blue, Vi, Popful Mail, the remake of damn, what is that doing down there? There. Let me see. There was the remakes of Lunar, the Silver Star. Namely, it was called Lunar Silver Star Story Complete and Eternal Blue Complete, and that was the last I actually had. I also have Lunar Legend, and that was basically it. And as you can see, I really love the series. I couldn't get enough of it. I mean, it was a good series. I even have the PSP version, but I don't have a PSP. Namely called Silver Star Harmony. But usually when I do something like this, I'm like, wow, this is good. To myself, I usually just look back on my work and say, damn, this is good. But I know I could do better. And I can tell you this. Making a book requires a lot of thought. Really, it requires a lot of thought, and most people just don't realize it. I mean, most people think, oh, it's easy to make a book. It's not really that easy to make a book. You have to put the time and the effort, as you can see, into making said book. You can't just say, oh, well, I know what to do with the book, and no. Like, you can't rush it. You have to just take your time with it. Slow down. Because people will be reading your work if you put in the time and effort to read said book. If you think, oh, speed is of the essence, in a way it is, and in a way it's not. So therefore, a lot of time and effort is being put in said book. No matter what story it is, no matter what genre it is. books are going to be around, and so like certain people will still be around to do it. Like me, for example. Now I've been told, not many the book industry isn't isn't really all that popular anymore because namely there is really no need for books because usually because how the internet is, you really can't find a good book in the bookstore. You usually have to go to somewhere like Barnes and Nobles online and maybe um, Amazon just to find a good book. So usually this is what I do. But now I start to think about it and I say, well, the only thing I can do The only thing I can do right now is like, oh, I can actually make a book. Oh, hi Moo. And actually, and usually what happens is, that's usually the case. I usually just make a long story, drag it out. But it's a good thing I do drag it out because usually when I drag it out, I usually make a story longer and longer and longer, and it makes those who actually buy my book, whoever they might be, whether I know them in person or online, and usually for what it's worth, I just simply type it up and bam. It's usually the case, and I do it because I enjoy doing it. It's the same thing as Let's Play. I like doing doing the games I choose to pick out, or sometimes if they're sometimes in a word requested or recommended, if they're good enough in a first look perspective, it's good, and I'll share why and the how and everything else. But usually in this case, I usually just say, hey, it's good, so I ought to try it. Yes, I'm actually doing this as I'm recording all this, and I'm actually looking down at my book, and I'm typing the rest of this up. So as you can see, this is what I do. When I'm not LPing, this is what I actually do. So hopefully you understand. And I put a lot of, whatever I do, whether it's a Let's Play or this is what I do, and this is my career. Now I know my friends. I know Big has told me this, and I know Ryu has told me this. And like I said, I I kind of feel like I'm the envy of my own friends because this is my career, and being as this is a career, I tend to almost feel sorry because this is what I do. Not only am I a Let's Player, but I'm an author. And of course, how the economy is, well, I'm trying to make a living. So you can tell it's one of these kind of things I like to do sometimes. And with that, I just don't give up on it. I remember there was one saying that I remember I read on Facebook at one point. And it says, no matter what happens, just write. Even if you don't have an idea in your head, just write something. And just write until, just write until you can't write anymore. So that's what I kind of been doing in the back of my head. I usually don't write because, usually I'm just dead tired. I can't even think. And, I know what you're thinking. Why are you doing this? Because I want to. And usually, I don't know why, but it's like, maybe I'm not as popular as one thinks. I mean, I usually lose a sub or gain a sub for no apparent reason because, oh, I like this game. I used to get comments on my channel about, oh, I like what you do and blah 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 this and blah 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 that, and it was nice. I don't mind having people that say they like what I do as a means to say, oh, well, since you're doing this, we're doing something to you. I mean, it's nice and all. But, I often worry sometimes if what I'm doing or what I'm showing on my channel kind of like bore people, or I don't know. I mean, I often think that. Sometimes I often think, oh, am I doing this right? But then again, I'm kind of thinking, I play games my way. If they don't like it, that's tough. But, I like feedback sometimes. That's just how I am. Sometimes I like feedback. Other times, I don't like people just wasting my time. Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's not worth it. But that's how I am sometimes. And like I said, I haven't touched this story since the last quarter of 2012. And I've been working on my room and everything since my mom was originally put in the hospital, namely in October of last year. So I've been keeping myself busy since then. Physically as well as mentally. I had to. I didn't want to basically just I really didn't want to just, sit there and suffer and make myself feel terrible. And it's just been like that. Usually this is what I like to do in my spare time, though. And usually this is how it is with me. It's kind of hard to actually talk at sometimes, and then you're at the same time you're doing something else. This is why I kind of quiet myself at some point in time. But usually, this is what I like sometimes. I like quiet. And when nobody is bugging me, I usually try to do that during the day, but sometimes it's hard to do that during the day. But yes, this is what I do. This is my actual job right here. So yes, I am Ichigo Musuko, the author as well as the Tenkaichi of gaming. And yes, you have just seen me do a book. You're actually watching me do a book. So with that, I hope you guys do understand how I am, and I hope this kind of makes it more in-depth. And what you just heard was my my modem drop. My bad. I'm so sorry. But yeah, this is what I do when I'm not LPing, and I hope you understand that it's rough being me, especially when you're trying to get everything done, and you don't have a care in the world, but you really should. So with that, hopefully, I pray most people will understand, and of course, I have to do this. I really have to do this. But my book, of course, Legacy of the Silver Stars. Legacy of the Silver Star. Legacy of the Seven Stars. Yeah, I'm half asleep. Legacy of the Seven Stars is available on the Dorrance Publishing website, as well as Amazon.com. And it's $15 for a physical copy, $10 for a digital copy. So I put a lot of time and effort, as well as money, to make said book happen. So I can somehow entertain you in some way and give something back, not only to the LP community, but, just become more of a contribution into what I do as an author, as well as a gamer. So with that, folks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it here, continue my work, and hopefully I will see you around with more videos. So with that, take care, God bless, and of course, Tenkai Muso.